Welcome back to Living Out Loud. I'm Susan Karp, the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging. Well, March is really proving to be a little less tame than what I was hoping for. I hope that you all survived the snowstorm on Tuesday. I rather enjoyed being at home inside nice and warm, didn't lose any electricity. That shoveling though is a problem, isn't it? I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to prepare yourself ahead of time. I'm hoping that you were able to get through and get that done. So as we move on, I want to let you know in the next couple of weeks we have some interesting programs. We've got someone here that will be joining me next week or the week after on the senior games. Senior games are those that are over 65 participating in games that happen every 2 years. His name is Greg Tooker. He'll be joining me. We're also going to be introducing a topic called Death Cafe. And what is a Death Cafe? I'm going to leave that to your imagination, and I'd like you to keep tuning in to us because we're also filming that again in March. Come April, we're going to have a guest from the Disability Commission, so I'd like you to stay tuned with that as well. So April will be right around the corner, and the month of April is National Volunteer Month. We will be honoring the volunteers that serve the Senior Center with a beautiful luncheon. In the month of May, May 11th, so mark your calendars for that, we'll be hosting our annual Older Americans Luncheon. That will be topped off with lobster rolls and clam chowder. So take a look at those newsletters and keep informed and get yourself signed up. What I'd like to talk about, though, that's happening in March, and perhaps this will be aired after the fact, but we had Charlotte Milan, who's a part of our recycling committee, put together a whole program on Civics Day. And what is Civics Day? It's really to learn all about the local government, the different departments, and the kinds of things that we do. So if you happen to be in the area, whether you see this before or after, the Council on Aging will be there represented by myself and Hannah Plasker, who is an intern from Regis College. We'll be talking about all the services and programs that go on at the Council on Aging, as well as transportation. Well, that's a nice segue into another program that we're doing. In March, the end of March, we're going to be hosting a transportation fair and a Senior Charlie Card event. So first I'm going to talk about the Senior Charlie Card event. So what that is, if you have never had a Senior Charlie Card, this is for you. We're going to be hosting 2 different times on March 30th, which is a Thursday. So the first time is going to be between 1 and 2:30, and then the second one will be from 5:30 to 6:30. So what do you need? You need to bring a government-issued ID in order to prove your age on this particular program. We'll have the forms for you to fill out. We take a picture, we attach it to the form, and then we send it in, and then about 6 weeks later you get it from the MBTA. So this will save you a trip to South Boston. If you want to go to South Boston, you're welcome to do that, but Thursday, March 30th, this is for you. The other thing that we're going to be talking about on March 30th is the Council on Aging transportation and the different transportation options. We're really wanting to make sure that our senior residents, as well as their families, are aware of the transportation options to keep you moving. Why is keeping moving important? Well, number one, keeping moving also keeps you very much alive. It lets your community see the vitality in aging, which, from my perspective, there's lots of vitality in Arlington, so I'd like to see you keep moving. So we do have a Council on Aging van. That van can take you from home to the Senior Center, which is where I am, with lots of programs and different events and services. It can also take you to medical appointments. So if you have a medical appointment locally, we can take you there with ease. We can also take you to out-of-town medicals. So for example, Mount Auburn, Winchester Hospital, Leahy, Burlington. Those are just to name a few, not to exclude anybody, but we can take you to those appointments for a very reasonable fee. It is door to door, which means that you've got to be able to come out of your home and enter the van. Certainly if you have a walker or wheelchair, we can accommodate that as well. Our driver will take you to the curb of wherever you need to be and you go in. When you're done, you have the office call, or if you have a cell phone, you call the driver and we come back and pick you up. It has worked out well for many seniors in Arlington. It can also give you more independence instead of perhaps waiting for your son or daughter in between work schedules or errand schedules to have to come and help you. So being independent and keeping moving is very important. Certainly some of our transportation requests are for out of areas. So if there's a Boston hospital or maybe a Waltham particular place, we have a whole corps of volunteer drivers that we refer to as medical escort drivers. So these drivers come into us, we query them, we make sure that they're good drivers, always nice people that come forward. And based on their availability, they can also take you to these appointments. That is a really nice feature to our transportation service, so keep in mind that that's something that we can do. Now let's talk about some of the medical procedures that may require sedation. Let's say if you're having a colonoscopy, an endoscopy, cataract surgery, you need someone to be able to walk in and escort you out. So our medical escort service, that particular thing that I've just mentioned, that is really a great use for the medical escort service, because you may be able to get there in public transportation, you ain't coming home on public transportation because they won't let you out on your own. They won't let you out for a cab waiting. So it actually requires somebody to come in. So that's the medical escort service, and that is a part of our transportation services. We also have the DialARide program, which is subsidized by the Community Development Block Grant Program. And how that works is that every fiscal year, and as I speak, we haven't received word that we have been approved. I'm assuming that we have, because it is a very active and ongoing program and the funds appear to be there. But it's a $20 registration fee at the beginning of the fiscal year, which begins July 1, which means we're still in a fiscal year, so you can still register, and then $5 per taxi voucher ticket. So what that means is that I'm charged $10, and I think $10.50 for a one-way ride with the taxi company that we have a contract with. I'm only going to charge you $5, and through the Community Development Block Grant, that subsidizes that ride. So that is a transportation service through the Council on Aging that operates 6 days a week. So that would be from 9 to 4, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. I'm not really sure if you can get better than that, once you either choose not to drive anymore, or whether there was a friendly tap on your shoulder saying you shouldn't drive anymore. And not to make light of that, that's a huge transition, but it's also important to know about the support services that you have in your community, and certainly that your town government supports. So keep that in mind. That's the DialARide. And then on the other side, I have a very good relationship with the Sanborn Foundation, and they're very generous, allocating at least $30,000 to $32,000 a year for us to facilitate rides for those who have cancer and that need transportation to their medical appointments for cancer treatments. So that's something that many of the area hospitals are aware of. So when somebody has been diagnosed, and a lot of the services or the medical responses to that are set up, many of the social workers in those units are reaching back out to the Town of Arlington Council on Aging because they're aware of it. But it's also important for you to be aware of it. And I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it again. If you're not affected by cancer, great. If you know someone that is affected by cancer, now you have this information that you're able to share. And speaking of sharing information, the great thing about coming into the Council on Aging, the Senior Center, which many don't want to be associated with a senior center. My father at 88 would not step into his senior center because he feels that it's for old people. But we really are a host of a lot of information and referrals, some really good information, very talented staff. So I do encourage you to come in. Whether you're there for a class through my partnership with Arlington Community Ed, or whether you just want to come in and see really what's going on. Sometimes you can just disguise yourself and come in and just look at the table with all the flyers and pretend, no, I'm not coming in, just to get a sense of the kinds of things that might be going on. We'd really like to see you. So in looking, we have talked about some of the things that are happening now. We've talked about the volunteer lunch that's coming up in April to honor the volunteers. Volunteering is a phenomenal way to have a purpose, to give back to your town, to be a part of a larger group. Bill Murphy does a great job as a volunteer coordinator. He also runs a group called Coffee and Conversation, which is the last Monday of each month between 10 and 11:30. Basically, all the volunteers are coming in. They share their stories with their respective volunteer roles, or they really just want to hear about what someone else is doing because maybe they weren't able to volunteer the month before. It's a fabulous opportunity to become more involved in volunteering within the Senior Center, which for those that currently volunteer, we rely on you heavily. And in fact, speaking of volunteers, there are about 30,000 people throughout the Commonwealth. And this is very interesting. So throughout the Commonwealth, there's about 30,000 individuals that volunteer, whether it's once or regularly. But out of those 30,000 people, and Arlington has their share, there's 50,000 hours per week, 50,000 hours per week. That is civic engagement. So don't just sit there. Come on in. We'll find you something that's meaningful to do. And certainly once the senior work-off program is, fingers crossed, approved at town meeting, we'll actually have approximately 20 slots for seniors to receive a $1,500 deduction on their real estate taxes. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. So with that in mind, I think we're basically trying to fill in some of the gaps between what really has been a relatively mild winter, even though we've gotten hit by a few back-to-back snowstorms. But we're in full operation. We were closed during the most recent snowstorm, but certainly give us a call any other time. We have a transportation service that can bring you from your home to the senior center, from home to the doctor's office. So really, think about that. If you see this prior to March 30th and you want some more information about our transportation services, and I do encourage you to come, that is March 30th, it's a Thursday, at the Senior Center. So it's between 1 and 2:30 is the first round. The second round is 5:30 to 6:30. Both time slots cover the same information. So if you feel like you can't make it to the 1 to 2:30, come to the 5:30 to 6:30 and vice versa. And certainly we'll have information about all the transportation services as well as different programs that we have within the Senior Center that you can come into using our van, but as well as a Senior Charlie card, because we really do want to keep you moving in every which possible way. All right, well, before we end today, I really do want to talk again about upholding economic and personal safety for you, the senior. Many of you know by now, and you've heard me say it many times, that we really have done a lot of strong work on this. It was back in 2014 when I received a grant to work on elder abuse. Many of you that are experiencing abuse will turn a deaf ear because you're like, no, I'm not being abused. So let's talk about personal safety. Let's talk about economic safety. The easier one, I should say, to talk about is the economic safety. So when we start talking about economic safety, you need to know that your Council on Aging, we reach out to the police department, we're in contact with the banks who also want to make sure that your economic safety is secure. Economic safety could be the scams and frauds that I keep hammering on everybody about, where you don't give out any information. Not your last 4 digits of your Social Security, not your last 6 digits of your Social Security, not your birth date, nothing. Absolutely nothing goes over by the phone, regardless how intimidating that caller may seem to be. They may say your grandchild is at risk. They may even say this is the IRS. We're going to send the FBI out to arrest you. Even in terms of our immigrant population, we're going to send, the folks out to deport you unless you give us the Social Security numbers. So, it happens so easily. We don't want you to receive a solicitation in the mail that says, send us $2,000 and we'll send you $4,000. It doesn't happen. It's all a scam and fraud. So again, economic security is everything from scams and frauds between the Medicare giving you a call, Mass Health giving you a call, the IRS, the FBI, Nobody's going to be calling you, asking you for any of your private information. Once that happens, you need to know it's a scam or fraud. If you have any questions on that, you certainly can give our office a call. Something that's a little bit harder to talk about really is the personal safety. Personal safety. If someone is intimidating you to do something, or if somebody is threatening you for any particular reason, that's the personal safety. It is difficult to bring it on air, and we're going to be doing a whole segment on personal safety, how you can recognize that you're a victim, because many victims, it becomes a way of life. You learn to be quiet because it ignites anger in the other person. You learn to stay in a different room for fear of being hurt. You're not alone. You feel alone, and you're alone in those moments, but the more you understand about the situation, the greater opportunities that we might be able to reach out and to help and to guide you to your next step, whatever that next step is. And it is a dark subject because no one likes to think that they're being abused. And it's also very scary. Many women, for example, will stay in their homes for fear of being homeless. And many men as well. So it's really not to just say men versus women. But I do want to bring that to the forefront. And even though this is a part of our closing, it is something that is very, very serious and something that we do want to start talking about a little bit more. And we'll have an opportunity even during a program in June when we have the World Elder Abuse Day. And in that, we're going to be working with True Story Theater, bringing some of these things to the forefront. Again, the more we bring it to the forefront, the more that we educate, we have an opportunity to reach those that are affected and possibly connecting them to some services to create their new next step. So we're just about ready to put those snow boots away. We only have a few more days for spring, although I'm not sure Mother Nature is buying into that right now. But I do look forward to seeing you next week when we have a guest speaker on the Deaf Cafe. Death, not deaf. So we'll see you then. I'll hold you in suspense. Susan Karp, Executive Director of the Council on Aging, and thank you for joining us today.